Good morning and a warm welcome to the Simply Divine programme. I'm Maria Colfer and you're tuned to Southeast Radio. And we hope you've enjoyed our first ever St. Bridget's Bank Holiday. Well, my guest this morning is an author, lecturer, poet and philosopher. He has been an assistant contributing editor to the Maryvale Research Bulletin, Maryvale Occasional Papers, and he has contributed to the Catholic Times, the Universe, Catholic Today, and to journals such as Inside the Vatican and Bible Alive. He's also been published in the UK Catholic Medical Quarterly and the National Catholic Bioethical Quarterly of America and in Ethics and Medics. He likes to go on pilgrimage. He's produced a number of books, gave a catechesis to over 300 pilgrims on Edith Stein at the Carmelite Monastery in Poland. He's married with 8 children, plus 3 in heaven. He's a freelance writer and speaker. He has graduated in Catholic theology, in Bible studies, higher education, in marriage and the family, and he's a collaborator of the Dignitas Persona Institute for Nascent Human Life. I'm delighted to welcome online Francis Etheredge. Good morning, Francis, and welcome to the programme, and thank you for joining us this morning. You have a very busy life, Francis.
Well, thank you, Maria, for a very comprehensive introduction. But I think in the first place, this busy life is a fruit of the Lord answering a very disordered life. I mean, the first pilgrimage I went on as an adult of any significance was going to Denver, Colorado, for the World Meeting of the Youth with the St. John Paul II, as he is now.
Yes.
And the word I heard there was, I come to give you life, and life to the full. Now, the point to make here then is that at the time, I'd barely begun studying theology because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had a series of relationships that went nowhere, some of which ended tragically. So the point about a full life is it is a gift of the Lord. Now, that full life continues to unfold, not in any automatic way, but in a dramatic way. You know, that this relationship to God is dramatic. And at a certain point 5 years ago, 5 years after that pilgrimage, it seemed to me my life was going from bad to worse. And I was, if you like, in one of the Gospels that when Christ said, if you're at the wedding feast and you haven't changed the clothes, I'm going to cast you out. And that's what happened to me. I went back to my sins. There's an awful description in the scriptures about the dog going back to its vomit, and it's a terrible experience. But the point being, there came a certain low point when there were 3 possibilities: suicide, mental illness, degenerating into more sins. And at that point, because of the course I'd embarked upon, I was reading from the Catechism that if God can create everything out of nothing, he can make a new beginning for the sinner. And for some reason, this word totally turned me around. I'd been unable to find my vocation. I'd been unable to finish any courses. I'd been unable to get anywhere, if you like. My life was often in ruins. Now, that was 40. Now, that's 26 years ago. I've now been married with these 10 children from this marriage and many events since. So this is about giving glory to God, that he can turn a life around that is completely wrecked. And he can make a word that we hear even before that word, if you like, begins to be fruitful. We can hear a word that will, in time, given the power of God, that will be fruitful. So I even went on another pilgrimage after that period of that moment of reading the Catechism.
Yeah.
And I was given this word, as you are on a pilgrimage, the woman caught in adultery. And Christ says, go and sin no more. Now, this word is like a word of creation. It doesn't just say what it says, it brings it about. And so because of that, within a year, I'd gone up to see about the possibility of a vocation to the priesthood, realized I was going out with lots of women, and what was the point of that? And then found a wife in the community which I'm now a part of, a neo-catechumenal community. And that was 26 years ago. So this life that is full is a fruit of this word of God.
Edith Stein is a name we've all heard many times. Can you tell us a bit about her?
Right. Well, it was a wonderful gift. We were on a pilgrimage with a number of our children to Poland, to Krakow, to meet Pope Francis. And as a part of the Catechesis team on this pilgrimage, I was asked to give a catechesis on Edith Stein. And to begin with, I read around because I didn't know very much about her. But as the pilgrimage developed, it looked as if it was not going to happen. We were going through Auschwitz, of all places. And I said to the head of the pilgrimage, this is the one woman who's on the agenda, as it were. And so far, we haven't managed to find an opportunity to give this catechesis, although I was somewhat trembling and in anxiety about giving it in front of 300 or 400 young people. Okay, he said, we'll see. Anyway, one of the convents we visited was a Carmelite convent. And he turned around, the head of the pilgrimage turned around and said to me, okay, give your catechesis. So do regard it as a gift of Edith herself, that I should give this catechesis in Poland in a Carmelite convent. Now, one of the key things about her life was she was the daughter of a Jewish family, so herself Jewish. She abandoned her Jewish faith when she was about 15. But as she said later in her autobiography, the pursuit of truth she regarded as almost a prayer in its own right. And she never abandoned the pursuit of truth. So although she stopped the practice of her Jewish faith, the pursuit of truth she regarded as I say, retrospectively, as like a path of prayer. And at a certain point, she was in a Christian home amongst philosophers, because she was an incredibly bright woman. And she entered, what was the movement of the day in terms of philosophy. But at the same time, she was open to what is the Christian faith. So she was in this Christian family, and she found a book on the shelf by St. Teresa of Avila. And in it, she discovered that the truth is a person, and that person is Jesus Christ. And this changed her mentality completely. And she, right away, I think she spent all night up reading the entire book and started the path of entering the Catholic Church, because she saw that this pursuit that was deep within her for the truth, because as a philosopher woman, she was studying a philosophy and indeed practicing it, where you turn to what exists, to what's real. And right away, there was, if you like, a consonance between this desire in her to seek the truth and Christ being the person who is the truth. As he says himself, I am the life, the truth, and the way. So she took up this, if you like, calling to enter the Catholic Church. But also, she was a feminist, but a feminist who took up the challenge of what is distinctive about being a man and being a woman. And one of the points she makes, which I think is still relevant and is very candid, is a woman has a sense of the wholeness of a person, of the wholeness of a life, whereas men tend to be a bit more specialized. They have a pursuit that they're going for. And this is a complementary vocation. It's not as if it's either or, but she saw very clearly that there are good and healthy differences between men and women. Now, this was part of her writing at a time when Nazism was on the increase, and her opportunities as a woman teacher, as a philosopher, were diminishing. And she was already in dialogue with a confessor to help guide her in her choice of vocation. And there came a point when none of the opportunities were available anymore for her to lecture, to give talks, to pursue a career. And at that point, her confessor said, now is the time to enter the convent, the Carmelite convent. And that's what she did. She entered the Carmelites. And for a while, she studied, she taught. She did an amazing amount of work. Then there came a point when, for her safety, she was encouraged to move to a convent in Holland. Mm-hmm. And so this is really the guidance of God in the events. It's quite a mysterious process, how a cross emerges in a person's life. Anyway, she went to Holland in this Carmelite convent. And as it happened, the Dutch bishops had written a very strong opposition to Nazism. And because of this, there was retaliation in Holland. And a lot of Christians were rounded up, including Edith. But she saw this as an opportunity to offer what was clearly going to be the loss of her life for those who were suffering and for those who were causing this suffering. So this is the spirit that she entered the death camp. And en route, the testimony is of her cheerfulness, of her helpfulness to the people around her. Now, one of the extraordinary things about going through Krakow, going through Auschwitz when we did on this pilgrimage to Krakow, was how peaceful it was, how extraordinarily peaceful, that a place that had been so much the center of so much destruction had grass, was quiet, the trees were growing, and if you like, the memorial of the place was still there, but there was an extraordinary peace about it. So what can we say about Edith? There is this pursuit of truth that she discovered in the end is Christ. And Christ calls us in many different ways, but at a certain point makes himself known as the one who is calling. And then there's the vocation that she entered into, this hidden life, but then it completely turned around, a bit like St. Teresa of Lisieux. She becomes very prominent because of the offering of herself that she's called to give.
Yeah.
And so there are many ways, and especially in terms of feminism, that we can ask her prayers in terms of the present times in which we live, that people will rediscover a healthy and good role and identity of being a man and being a woman.
Edith Stein is definitely a very interesting story. Family is very important to you. You have 8 children ranging from their early 20s right down. Can you tell us how you managed to get the whole lot of them to attend the World Meetings of Families?
Well, it originates with St. John Paul II. As a bishop, he took people out of the circumstances of their life under communism and went into the countryside. When he became the Pope, he thought, why don't I continue these activities? And so what he started were the 2 great events of the World Meeting of Youth and the World Meeting of Families. Now, the first one we went to was Milan. Our children were just big enough to push a bag of belongings so that when we arrived in Milan, I woke up the Easter before this event and said to my wife, why don't we go? What have we got to lose? And she said, you're mad. We didn't have enough passports. We had to get permission from the schools. But as it happened, we didn't have enough money. People helped us. We got the passports. We got permission from schools. And it just seemed to me, this is a great event that the Pope says, meet me in Milan, or meet me in Brazil, or I didn't go to Brazil, but some of our children did. It sets people in motion. It sets us in motion, asking for permission, raising money, talking to the schools. And the children took this up. They didn't object. They thought it was exciting. And these, at the time, I think, I can't remember exactly how they were, but the youngest, Margaret, was still able to drag a bag, and the oldest, Grace, was still able to, get out of school without endangering her education or anything like that.
Yes.
And everyone in between seemed quite happy to do it. So that's what we did. We arrived in Milan with this kind of adventure that was inaugurated by St. John Paul II. And we were the last out at the airport, my wife and I and 8 children, all with our bags. And the security at the airport said, "Una familia, are you one family?" So this event of being called to go places, to listen to the promptings of the Holy Father, is not just for our own sake, as exciting as it is, and as it took up our family to do this, as exciting as it is, it was about also giving a witness that God does amazing things. And so as we left this airport, the security guard said, "Una familia, are you one family?" And wherever we went in Milan, people would cross the road and they would say, "Are you one family?" Because we went more than just a few days to meet the Pope and for the events. We asked to stay on because of moving us all over there. And we were put up, we were given accommodation, and we were fed. And we got on the bus. And I'll tell you one prayer. We got lost. There was a gathering of all the pilgrims from England, and we went to a centre, and we went off for a walk around a lake nearby. And one of my daughters kicked her shoe off into the lake. We couldn't rescue it. Anyway, we got back to the centre, and everyone had gone. So nobody spoke English. I didn't speak any Italian. So we set off, wondering how we're going to get back to our accommodation. Anyway, we got to this bus stop. There are ants in the bus stop, and the children get all as they do, push and shove and wail and getting tired and all the rest of it. I said, "One Hail Mary." And would you believe, an Italian stopped, didn't speak a word of English. A bus stopped. The Italian got out of the bus, having got out of the car, having recognized us from the centre, talked to the driver of the bus. You can be fined €50 if you get on a bus without a ticket. They let all 10 of us get on the bus free, took us to the bus station. The guy in the car followed the bus, made sure we got on the right bus to get back to our accommodation. That was one Hail Mary.
Amazing, amazing. Francis, you're quite a prolific writer. Where are your books available?
Amazon. There's 13 on Amazon.
Okay. Would you like, just before you go, would you mind sharing with us a little piece of your poetry or your writings?
Yes, I'm happy to do so. This is the title piece, because the book is called The Prayerful Kiss, and it takes its title from this poem. How many particles whiz without a sound, whirl effortlessly, bind and build structures impossible to describe, hidden, multiplying a multiplicity of shapes and sizes, attracting and repelling, stable and changing, emerging in time, visibly magnificent. Particles partnered in tension, like static, building in the atmosphere, striking in a lightning, leaping between Earth's arising, wavering tendrils, and the massing in the air, tinging mauve, almost smouldering, colours but too pale, electric, arcing between poles, closing the circuit and running so swiftly fast, to translate into power, movement, energy, heat, light, and a billion trillion artistic touches, in a brilliantly dancing display of coloured shapes and shaping colours. Deep within the depths of all our wondering, arising between plants and animals, between insects and flowers, species of all kinds, like from light, linked through a common bonding, sparkling with light, like sparklers in the night, passing likeness through difference, like match and tinder, young springing from old, new passing through generations, leaving their trace and trailing away, almost ebbing away, quietly, noiselessly, fading away, then still, slipping imperceptibly into the ground. What in us comes together, if not a universal attraction, transformed and personalized, speaking, fruitfully suffering, and enduringly changing through a word, rebounding in us from the beginning, and begging us to believe in being poured out in a poverty that hopes against hope for help. Wholly unlikely, I know, to believe in the prayerful kiss, as if the Creator could have created the splendor of the sky's dawning, myriad awakenings, and the sweet, barely on the air scents of flowers, without disclosing in a million traces the free gift of an abundant giving, a beautiful singing of love being the beginning.
Francis, that's beautiful. You've certainly given us hope that any single life can be turned around by the grace of God, and reminded us even how powerful one Hail Mary can be. I hope you and your family and your writings and your pilgrimages continue to keep you inspired and hopeful, and to keep on giving witness. We wish you many blessings, so thank you and good morning to you.
Thank you too. God bless.
And that's all from us for this week. My thanks to Patricia on the sound desk. Tune in tomorrow morning at 9:04 when Patricia will present Sounds for Sunday. Finally, remember we're all made in the image and likeness of God, so we're not just human, we're also divine.
This program was produced by the Christian Media Trust, exclusively for Southeast Radio.